Mercedes did not just take pole at Silverstone. They exposed something every rival team now has to worry about. Kimi Antonelli, under massive pressure, in one of the fastest and most unforgiving circuits in Formula One, put the Mercedes on top when the car should have been questioned, doubted, and attacked from every side. And that is the dangerous part. Because Silverstone does not reward luck for long. It exposes weak cars. It exposes nervous drivers. It exposes teams that are hiding behind one perfect lap. So when a rookie delivers pole there, the paddock does not just ask, how fast was he? They ask a much darker question. What have Mercedes found? Because if this was only Antonelli producing one incredible lap, then Mercedes have a star. But if this was Antonelli unlocking a Mercedes that finally feels stable, confident, and alive again, then every team on the grid may have just witnessed the first warning sign of a much bigger comeback. And the most important part is not the pole itself. It is what that pole may reveal about Mercedes' future, their car, their belief, and the reason rival teams may suddenly be looking at Brackley very differently. Subscribe to the channel. Silverstone is not just another Formula One track. It is one of the places where a car gets judged without mercy. Some circuits can hide weakness. A car can look quick because it has strong straight-line speed. Or because the tires happen to switch on at the perfect moment. Or because the track layout covers up the areas where the team is still struggling. But Silverstone does not give teams that kind of protection. This circuit asks a simple question, again and again. Do you really trust your car? Through the fast corners, the driver cannot pretend. The steering has to be precise. The rear of the car has to stay calm. The tires have to survive enormous pressure. And the driver has to believe, deep down, that when he turns in at high speed, the car will not suddenly betray him. That is why Antonelli's pole position matters so much. Not because one qualifying result proves Mercedes are suddenly the strongest team on the grid. That would be too simple. It matters because the place where it happened makes the message harder to ignore. At Silverstone, speed is not enough by itself. You need balance. You need stability. You need a car that gives the driver confidence before the stopwatch gives the result. And for Mercedes, that detail is massive. Because for a long time, the biggest question around the team has not only been, are they fast? The bigger question has been, can they understand their own car well enough to make it fast again and again? That is the difference between a flash and a comeback. A flash can happen once. A comeback begins when the team starts seeing the same clues repeat. And this is where the pressure around Antonelli becomes even more interesting. He is not a veteran who has spent years learning how to hide a difficult car. He is not someone who can use endless Formula One experience to cover over every weakness. A young driver usually reveals the truth quickly. Because if the car feels nervous, the hesitation appears immediately. The lap becomes tense. The inputs become careful. The confidence disappears before the speed does. But if a young driver can attack Silverstone, if he can place the car with conviction through those fast sections, if he can commit when the consequences of a mistake feel enormous, then the paddock starts paying attention for a very different reason. They are no longer only watching the driver. They are watching what the car allowed him to do. And that is the hidden part of this story. Because the pole was not just Antonelli saying, I am ready. It may also have been Mercedes saying, we are closer than you think. Think of it like a young sprinter putting on a pair of shoes for the first time and suddenly running with complete confidence. The athlete still needs talent. The athlete still needs courage. But if the shoes finally give grip, support, and trust, the whole movement changes. That is what a Formula One car does for a driver. When the car is unstable, the driver drives with doubt. When the car is predictable, the driver drives with belief. And belief is worth lap time. That is why rival teams would not dismiss this as just a good Saturday. They would look deeper. They would ask where Mercedes found the performance. Was it in the high-speed corners? Was it in the way the tires came alive? Was it in the balance that let Antonelli attack without overdriving? Because those answers matter far beyond one session. If Mercedes simply hit the perfect conditions for a single lap, then the threat may fade. But if Mercedes found a direction that makes the car easier to trust, then Silverstone becomes something else entirely. It becomes evidence. Not final proof. But evidence that the team may have found a stronger base. And in Formula One, a stronger base is dangerous, because everything grows from it. Setups become easier to choose. Drivers become clearer with feedback. Engineers stop chasing ghosts. The factory can develop parts with more confidence. The entire team starts moving in one direction instead of fighting several problems at once. That is how momentum begins. Quietly. Then suddenly everyone notices. Mercedes know this better than almost anyone. Their greatest years were not built on one miracle session. They were built on understanding. They knew what made their car fast. They knew how to improve it. They knew how to arrive at different circuits and still look controlled. That control has been missing. And that is why Silverstone felt different. Because Antonelli's pole did not just create excitement. It created a question that every rival team now has to take seriously. What if Mercedes are not simply waiting for their old dominance to return? What if they are building a new version of themselves? A version with a younger driver, a different emotional energy, and a car that may finally be starting to speak the language the team understands. That is the danger. Not that Mercedes have solved everything. Not that the championship picture changes overnight. The danger is that one of the most powerful teams in Formula One may have found the first clear clue they needed. And once a team like Mercedes finds a clue, the rest of the grid knows what comes next. They chase it. They develop it. They protect it. And if the clue is real, they turn it into a weapon. But then comes the part that makes this story sharper. Because a pole position at Silverstone does not only create excitement inside Mercedes. It creates suspicion everywhere else. Not suspicion in the sense of something illegal. The source material does not support that, and Formula One does not need a secret scandal for a story to become dangerous. This kind of suspicion is different. It is the suspicion that a rival has understood something before you have. And in Formula One, that feeling can be brutal. Because every team on the grid knows how fast a competitive advantage can grow. One weekend, it looks like a small improvement. The next weekend, it becomes a pattern. Then suddenly, the team that looked like it was searching for answers is forcing everyone else to react. That is why rivals do not look at Antonelli's pole and simply say, "Nice lap." They break it apart. They ask whether Mercedes was strong. They ask whether the car looked calm under load. They ask whether Antonelli was correcting the steering too much, or whether the car gave him the confidence to carry speed naturally. Those details matter. Because the stopwatch tells you who was fastest. But the behavior of the car tells you why. And why is always the more dangerous question. If Mercedes found speed only because conditions were perfect, then rivals can breathe. Track temperature, tire preparation, timing, clean air, all of those things can create a one-day opportunity. But if Mercedes found speed because the car has become more predictable, that is something else. A predictable car is not just easier to drive. It is easier to improve. Imagine trying to fix a problem in your house, but every time you touch one thing, something completely different breaks. You fix the door, and the lights fail. You fix the lights, and the sink stops working. After a while, you are not really improving the house. You are just chasing problems. That is what an unpredictable Formula One car can feel like. Change the front of the car, and the rear becomes nervous. Help the tires warm up, and they overheat later. Add performance in one corner, and the driver loses confidence in another. The team never gets peace. But when a car becomes predictable, the work changes. The engineers can make one adjustment and understand the result. The driver can explain what he feels, and the data starts to make sense. The factory can build upgrades knowing they are not throwing darts in the dark. That is why this Silverstone pole may have caused a much deeper reaction than the public saw. Because rival teams may not fear the lap itself. They may fear what the lap suggests about Mercedes' development path. And this is where the rumor becomes powerful, even without a confirmed technical secret. The rumor is not that Mercedes have discovered one magic part. The rumor is that they may have discovered direction. Direction is one of the most valuable things in Formula One. A team with direction can accept a bad session, because it knows what it is building. A team without direction can have a good session and still feel nervous, because it does not know if the performance will return. Mercedes have spent too long living in that uncomfortable space between hope and doubt. One weekend, the car looks close. Another weekend, the same promise fades. That creates pressure inside the garage, because every answer feels temporary. Every improvement has to prove itself again. But Silverstone gave them something different. Not certainty. A signal. A signal that the car may be responding in a way the team can trust. And for rivals, that is the part that changes the mood. Because Mercedes are not a small team hoping to get lucky. They are one of the most powerful organizations in the sport. They have the people, the factory, the history, and the hunger to turn a small clue into a serious threat. If the clue is real, they will not leave it alone. They will build around it. They will test it in different conditions. They will ask Antonelli and the other side of the garage what the car is giving them, what it is still hiding, and where the next step can come from. And every rival team knows that process. They do it themselves. That is why the reaction is not panic. It is calculation. McLaren, Ferrari, Red Bull, and every team with front-running ambition would look at Mercedes and ask the same basic question. Is this a one-off, or is this the beginning of a trend? Because if it is a one-off, then Silverstone becomes a story. But if it is a trend, Silverstone becomes a warning. And that warning becomes even stronger because of Antonelli's role in it. A rookie on pole changes the emotional weight of the result. If a veteran puts the car on pole, people can explain it with experience. They can say he found something the car did not obviously have. They can say he carried the lap with years of instinct. But when a young driver does it, the interpretation becomes more complicated. Either Antonelli is already operating at a level that demands serious respect, or Mercedes have made the car feel good enough for that talent to appear this early. Maybe it is both. And that is the version rivals least want to see. Because a fast young driver is dangerous. A fast young driver in a car that is becoming easier to trust is a long-term problem. That combination does not just threaten one qualifying session. It threatens future Sundays, future strategies, future development races, and future championship pressure. And that is why the conversation inside other teams would not stop at the result sheet. They would study the shape of the weekend. They would look at how Mercedes built toward the lap. They would look at whether Antonelli seemed comfortable early, or whether the speed appeared suddenly. They would compare that with previous races. They would ask whether the team has found a better way to bring the tires into the right window. Because tires are one of the hidden doors in Formula One. To casual fans, tires are just black circles on the car. But inside the paddock, they can decide everything. A Formula One tire has to be warmed up carefully. Too cold, and it does not grip. Too hot, and it fades. Push too early, and the lap dies before the final corners. Wait too long, and the opportunity disappears. It is like cooking something delicate. Too little heat, and it never comes alive. Too much heat, and you ruin it before it reaches the plate. At Silverstone, that challenge is even more intense because the fast corners put so much energy through the tires. They are being loaded, twisted, punished, and asked to perform over and over again. So if Mercedes managed that tire window better, even slightly, that would be a major clue. Not a guaranteed revolution, but a clue. And clues matter because every Formula One development story begins with one small question that refuses to go away. Why did the car look better there? Why did the driver trust it more? Why did the lap hold together? Why did the Mercedes seem less fragile at a place where fragile cars get exposed? That is the quiet fear behind the paddock reaction. Not that Mercedes suddenly have all the answers, but that they may finally be asking the right questions. And once a team starts asking the right questions, everything speeds up. The meetings change. The simulator work changes. The upgrades stop feeling like guesses and start feeling like steps. The drivers walk into debriefs with clearer language, because they are not just describing problems anymore. They are describing progress. That emotional shift matters. Formula One teams are built from data, but they are powered by belief. When belief disappears, even good ideas can feel weak. When belief returns, even small improvements can feel like the start of something bigger. Antonelli's pole may have given Mercedes that feeling. And rival teams would understand exactly why that is dangerous. Because the most frightening version of Mercedes is not a team that celebrates one pole. It is a team that looks at one pole and says, now we know where to go next.